Hi, this is David at Mash IT. Now, following on from our recent M15 R5 review, and now we've had some hands-on time, tonight we're going to be doing a deep dive on this M15 R5. Now, this is the QHD 3070 model that we reviewed. Coming up in the next few days, we are also going to be doing a base model, which is the 3060 and 1080p screen model versus this model. So if you are interested between those two models, that will be dropping in the next couple of days. So please make sure you hit the notifications and the subscribe if you wish to be notified for that one. So looking at this one today, I'm going to be breaking it down into a few parts. So timestamps will be down below. So feel free to jump to the sections that you wish that's useful to you. And I'm going to start off by looking at Alienware Command Center. Now, if you've seen the M17R4 Performance Deep Dive, we looked at the Command Center in quite a great deal of depth there. And so I recommend if you're new to Alienware that you go back and just check that one out before this one, because obviously it'll give you a good idea of the Alienware Command Center and what is actually missing from this M15R5 Command Center. So loading it up, we're in the dark mode. You can choose it up the top here between dark and light, but I think the dark mode certainly looks a little bit nicer, especially with the Dark Side of the Moon laptop. We basically have a few tabs across the top, which is the Home tab, which we're in, the Library, where it'll show your games library, the FX tab, now this is where you can adjust your lighting for the laptop, and finally the Fusion tab, where you can adjust your profiles, create new profiles, change your power settings and your speaker settings. So back to the home screen. On this home screen, it will tell you what theme you're currently using, if you've created one yourself, and then it'll tell you what you're set between the thermal profile, the audio profile, your power, and whether you've got your audio recon on and off. From here, if you drop this down, you can choose your Go Dim for your lights, and that will change the whole system's lights to the dim mode, or you can click Go Dark to turn the whole system's lights off. This can be quite handy if you want all of the system lights off, so the rear as well with the Tron ring and the alien head on the back of the machine, not just the keyboard. So this is quite useful, so if you are, say, in a library or somewhere you don't want the lights, it's a quite quick way of disabling all the actual laptop's lighting. A new addition for this new Alienware M15R5 is an actual hotkey on the actual keyboard that can also turn the lights off. So if you press Function F7 now, that will also turn off all the system lights, so save you going into Alienware Command Center. So quite a nice feature now. Now if we move across the bottom, you see a little pen that you create your new themes. We're not going to be doing that at the moment, but what we are going to look at is we're going to look at this overclock section, and you can see it says not applicable. Now on the M15R4 and all previous Alienwares, this has been an area where you can change the overclock of the system. So you can overclock the GPU and you can overclock the CPU. This has been completely removed on the M15R5, yet they've been so lazy they haven't even taken away this actual overclock section. You've just got not applicable. So if I click this, it takes me into the Fusion tab with nothing to do. So nice work, Alienware. And whilst I'm on that note, I just want to say, just in case anyone from Dell or the Alienware team is watching, this Alienware Command Center is the biggest area that Dell needs to overhaul these laptops. Every year we get a nice new revision of Alienwares, and every year we get exactly the same version of Alienware Command Center, to the point where this year they've been so lazy, they've not even taken out the features they've removed from the laptops. So really, Dell, you need to up your game and update this software. Sorry about the rant, and back to the actual software itself. On the thermal profiles, you can see that I've got balance selected. If I click this and choose the profiles, if you remember the R4, if you've seen our R4 videos, you had a number of options to choose from with the fan profiles. With the M15R5, you've got balanced and you've got full speed, and that is it. There's nothing in between. There's no quiet mode, there's no cool mode, there's no performance mode. Two options, that's all you've got. Now the good thing you can do, if we go into the Fusion, we'll have a look in a second, you can create your own, but two by default. Now the one good thing is by leaving it in balance mode, it does stay very quiet, so that kind of negates the need for having an actual quiet mode, but still not the point. Dell have always given us a number of fan profiles. This year they haven't. Moving across, we've got the Alienware Audio. This has got the same options as previous Alienwares, where you can just customize the audio output to music, gaming, racing, whatever you like. I normally just leave it on the default Alienware. That sounds pretty good to me. And then finally, we've got our power profiles, which literally changes your Windows power profile. So you're sort of duplicating what you've got with your Windows power profiles, but it's nice that it is all in one place. So moving across to the Library tab at the top, I've just put a couple of games and launches in here. What you can basically do with each of these is you can actually launch the actual application from within the Alienware Command Center, but you can also create profiles to launch with it, which is quite good. I don't know if anyone actually uses this, but you can get it to set the fan to full speed when you launch it from here. You can change the power profile to the high performance mode, and you can also change your audio recon on and off once you launch the game. So I don't know if anyone actually uses this, but this is a feature that's in there. If you do, move it across to the FX. Now this is where you change the actual lighting on the laptop. So at the moment I've got the rainbow wave selected. So if I choose my lighting and I choose my keyboard, now this model is the per key. Obviously the base model, if you saw our keyboard video recently, that is the 4-zone keyboard. I'll put the link down below in case you wish to see that, where we test the mechanical keyboard versus the 4-zone keyboard. So by clicking on the all keys or choosing the keys, we can change the actual effect or the color. So you can see we've got breathing, spectrum, scan. Let's put the scanner on, and then we'll choose a color. That'll do. There we go. So we've put the sort of the Knight Rider. In fact, we should do it red really. The Knight Rider scanner on. You've got a number of different effects, and of course you've got the per key lighting, so you can just light up the cursor keys and different keys for your games in certain colours, and you can apply those with the games when you launch it if you wish. And then lastly, we're going to move across to the Fusion tab. Now, again, this has been dumbed down. As I said, there's no overclocking anymore in the Fusion tab. This is something I know a lot of Alienware users used to love because it was one place to overclock, monitor your temps, change your fan profiles. This has been really dumbed down with this M15R5. We've got, obviously, the temperature still, and if we click on the temperature tab, you can see that we've got our balance profile and our full speed profile. You can also create a new one, and from within your new profile, if you go to the advanced, you can change the fans, but I'm still scratching my head trying to work out how best it works. You've got the offset here, and you can change the offset of the fan, and you've also got this smooth line where you can actually just drag it up depending on, there we go, so you've got your offset and your temperature. So this is something you may wish to play around with. What I've basically found, because the fans aren't that loud in this model as it was on the R4, I'll just chuck it on full speed. And the full speed isn't actually that bad when you're gaming, especially if you've got a gaming headset on. If I was in a quiet place or somewhere I wanted to keep the fans quiet, you can game on the balance mode, but obviously the temperatures will get up into the 90s. Now, it does seem that with these Ryzens, they're more than comfortable sitting in the 90s. I do prefer lower temperatures on the CPU. Now, going back to the home screen, just one last thing I want to talk about before we look at the next section is, as well as obviously, as I say, we've got the balance and the full speed, you now have the F1 hotkey. So if I press function F1 now, you'll notice that on the per key, the light goes white on the F1 key here. We've got a little racing dial underneath it. This puts the machine into the performance mode where it whacks the fans right up. So it's rather than going into Command Center and having to actually change it to full speed mode, function F1 does exactly the same. So whenever I'm playing a game, I will normally hit function F1 before I start playing the game, and off I go. Hopefully you can hear the fans sort of ramping up there on their own. And I'm going to turn it off. Okay, so a lot of the comments I had in the Ryzen M15R5 review was that how hot the CPU runs with this laptop. And I don't think it's just this Alienware laptop. There are a lot of other Ryzen laptops and they all seem to run hot with these 5000 series Ryzen chips. So been playing with this for the last couple of weeks when I've been really testing and benchmarking it. And what I have found is a piece of software called Ryzen Controller. I'm just going to open it up. It's a very straightforward piece of software, but allows us to do two different things which can help us with the temperatures. Now the first thing, we've got a little tick box here for temperature limits. If I tick this box, it brings me up a little drop down and it defaults it to 85 degrees. So by applying this now, as soon as we get to 85 degrees, the actual CPU will throttle back to keep it at 85 degrees centigrade. Now I personally am happy with about 90, so I'm going to just up that to 90 degrees. And that's certainly a lot better than the Dell's 95 to up to 100 degrees that it runs at. Now the second option we've got is to limit the processor in TDP. So if I tick the long boost TDP, I can select 25 watts. Now you can change that to whatever you're comfortable with. By setting the TDP to 25 watts, whilst you're gaming, you're probably not going to find you're losing any frames, but it is going to help bring this temperature down. And only very CPU heavy games like something like Battlefield 5 may you notice a dip in the actual frequency. So once I've chosen what I'm happy with, my temperature limit and my long boost TDP, I'm just going to click apply. And that's now successfully taken. So what I'm going to quickly do now is I'm going to run some gameplay footage, and on the left half of the screen we're going to show the actual stock footage, and on the right side of the screen we'll be showing the tweaked footage. Right, so as we cannot overclock the GPU in the Alienware Command Center like we always used to be able to do, I personally use MSI Afterburner anyway, so that's what we're going to do now quickly. So I've installed the latest beta for MSI Afterburner. I'm going to drop that in the description down below. But what you're going to find, if you're running an advanced Optimus so that you can switch from the Vega to the NVIDIA graphics card, when you boot up MSI Afterburner, what you will spot is that it's picked up your Vega, because obviously you can overclock that Vega graphics card as well, but you probably never will because you doubt you'll ever be gaming on it. So the first thing we're going to need to do before we do any overclocking is we're going to click on Settings, and on the General tab, it'll ask you what the master graphic processor selection is. You're going to drop that down and you're going to choose your 3070 or 3060 if you've got that one. Now you make sure you hit Apply and click OK, and it'll take you back to your main screen, and you'll notice that you've now got your NVIDIA graphics card highlighted, and we can now overclock it. Now I'm going to just do a basic overclock, which I think most people will be able to get away with unless you get really unlucky with silicon. I'm going to do a 100 core clock and a 300 memory clock. What you can do is you can play around till you get the sort of the best clocks that you can get, and once you are happy with some, you can save them as a profile along the bottom. Now I have already done a video on how to overclock your laptop with MSI Afterburner. I will drop that in the description down below in case you wish to watch that. So, firing up TimeSpy to see the difference between the stock score and the overclock score. Now, the out-of-the-box score for TimeSpy that we had on our initial review had a score of 9,488 with a GPU score of 9,653. That's okay, but that's certainly not where I want it to be for a 3070. So with this overclock and running that TimeSpy again, we've now got a score of 10,156 with a graphics score of 10,456, which is a much more respectable score for a 3070. I should be able to boost way past this 100 megahertz, but I just want to play it safe, just for the benefit of everybody out there, because not everybody's silicon is going to be the same. Okay, so that's the performance section of this laptop out of the way. What we're going to quickly do now is I'm just going to open it up and I'm going to show you the RAM and how to upgrade the SSD in this machine. Okay, so we're going to open it up and we're going to take a quick look at what is inside this laptop and how to upgrade the SSDs and talk about the RAM. Now, fortunately, most of these screws are captive, which makes opening the laptop very easy. We're going to unscrew all of these, and you hear them pop when they open. These are all the captive screws. Okay. Now, the top two near the rear are not captive. So when you've unscrewed those, just take them out to put them to the side. The first one. And there's the second one. Right, so now I've unscrewed it, it lifts the plate away from the chassis. So I'm going to just pop my nails. I don't know if you can, I'm just going to move this a bit further away so you can see. So I'm just literally going to put my nail in the front of it, and I'm just going to pull it up. That's it. Simple as that. Lift it away because it's got little tabs at the back. So pull it towards you a little bit. I'm going to spin it over, and then we can see inside the laptop. So now the first thing you're going to see is this copper plate over on the left. This is the default stock 512 drive that you get if you buy one of the the configs with this laptop. It's a 30mm drive. Now that is absolutely fine. If you're going to leave this 512 in, you can add a second drive in over here. But if you've seen my previous video, or if you've seen Dave 2D's video, you'll notice that there is no mounting peg for that second SSD. Now I did create a video on this and we got in touch with Dell. Now Dell have said that from now on they are actually going to be putting that SSD mount in the laptop. If you haven't got one, I suggest you can contact Dell and just moan and just forward my video, or just just let them know that they should have that mounting post in. A few people have had that sent out for free. If you can't be bothered to go through the hassle of doing that, I'm going to just pop a link down in the description again, where you can buy that on Amazon. It's about a $10 part. It's not expensive, but it should have been included. I will also link my original video about the SSD mount as well, if you wish to watch that. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to show you how to switch out the 30mm M.2 for an 80mm M.2, because a few people have asked how to do this. So I'm going to take off my holding screw there, and also the copper plate heatsink is also screwed down to the motherboard as well, so make sure you remove that screw there. There we go. Now, so pull that away, because there's thermal pad between the actual SSD and the copper plate, pretty much sticks together. But there you can see, this is a Samsung PM991 30mm M.2 with the copper plate on it. In fact, let's just see if I just quickly separate that. There we go. Not sure if you can see that. Just try and focus in. You might be able to see that. If not, I'll get a close up in a second. So that's the stock drive that comes. We've had a few of these in now, and they've all come with this same 30mm Samsung drive. Pretty good drive, but it is only 30mm, which is a pain. So what we're going to need to do is, by default, obviously then, it's going to be the standoff to screw the M.2 to the motherboard is obviously set to 30mm. That's going to be no good if you wish to pop in an 80mm drive. So we need to remove this standoff and place it in the 80mm slot. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to just quickly pop the battery cable out. There we go. And then we're going to use my plastic pry tool, and I'm going to just pop out this bracket. So there we go, we've got the M.2 standoff, and what we need to do now is we're going to need to place that in 80mm. So there we go, so we've popped our clip into our 80mm slot, so you can see this obviously right up near the end. And you're going to take your 80mm M.2 NVMe, and you're going to just gently just squeeze that in, and it will just push over and lock in place over the screw hole. Now obviously you haven't got the proper copper heat plate if you put in from a 30 to an 80mm. Again, I'm going to put a link for the description down below if you wish to buy that. You know, you can certainly sort of pick something up off Amazon. It's just literally a copper plate with some thermal pad. But that's it, you're basically done. So the one good thing is you can easily move it from that 30mm to an 80mm. Now, the next thing we're going to quickly look at is the RAM. If I pull this little plate back here, you can see we've got two DIMM slots that we can upgrade the RAM. So we can move from this has obviously got 16GB, so you can move right up to 64GB of RAM in this laptop if you wish. But something I did want to mention, the 16GB that you receive in this laptop is the slower speed 3200 MHz RAM. Now, Jared recently did a really good video on this where he found his Legion 5 Pro laptop was running quite slow against other laptops. He couldn't understand it. When he checked the RAM, he found it was slower RAM, which was losing about 10% performance. The RAM he had in that Legion 5 Pro is exactly the same RAM we've got here. I'm going to drop some links into the description again where you can buy the fast RAM if that's something you wish to upgrade yourself as well. And that's it. Okay, now the last little tweak that I've come across over my time with this laptop. When I first did my battery testing with this QHD panel, I was getting terrible battery life, about 5.5 hours when I'm streaming over Wi-Fi. Now I managed to get up to about 6.5 hours with some BIOS updates, but still not as good as a lot of the other Ryzen laptops. So what we basically did to improve the battery life, if we click on display settings, so we're going to scroll down and we're going to click advanced display settings. And what we're going to basically do is we're going to change our refresh rate from the 240 Hertz, and we're going to change it to 60 Hertz. You can do it here or in the Vega software, doesn't matter. But basically now, by turning this down to a 60 Hertz display, I'm getting nearly 10 hours of battery life with that same Wi-Fi streaming test, running YouTube videos sort of over Wi-Fi at 50% brightness. This is a massive improvement in battery life and puts it right up there with the 1080p 165 Hertz panel. So there is actually decent battery life to be had on this QHD, which in my mind was the biggest negative to having the QHD display, because everything else about this QHD display is really positive. So that's it for this video. Hopefully it's answered a lot more of your questions with regards to this M15R5 laptop. There are more videos coming. Soon we're going to be doing the 3060 base model versus this 3070 QHD model. So please make sure you're subscribed, hit the notification bell for that one. And lastly, thank you for watching.